Margaret to be kept using my fiancé's ex-wife's name to taunt me and insist that she's just joking, until I snap and tell her that her choice made her son's life a nightmare for 5 years. Now she's crying crocodile tears and accusing me of disrespecting her. So, a couple of days ago, I had a bit of an outburst at a family dinner that my future mother-in-law was hosting. Margaret, let's call her that, has never liked me, and she couldn't be more obvious about it. Even though my fiancé is divorced and has been for the past 6 years, she can't seem to move on from his ex, even though that woman was a total nightmare, and she was the one who cheated on my fiancé with one of his richer friends. She seems to think that it was his fault. She was the one who had actually set them up together because his ex-wife's mom was a very close friend of hers. So she had played matchmaker and forced him to get married at 25, after having dated his ex for just 1 year. And then, for 5 years, this woman had made his life a living nightmare, and Margaret knows all about it. But even then, she's convinced that it's his fault that she left. And sometimes, she has even said that she doesn't blame her because she just upgraded to someone better to make her own life easier. And why don't I agree that she upgraded? I don't think that she wanted to make her life easier because she has never worked a day in her life. She's always been a housewife. And even then, she needed a housekeeper, so she ended up doing nothing at home. And she was a huge shopaholic, to the point where I think she had an addiction. And my fiancé had told me how she had always thrown tantrums whenever he refused to let her spend his money however she wanted to. But now she doesn't have that problem. The guy she ended up with is a lot richer, thanks to generational wealth. She was a total gold digger, you get the picture. She was the one who initiated the divorce, and just a couple of months after it was finalized, she got married to his friend and moved cities. And since then, neither she nor her mother have bothered to keep in touch with Margaret, which is quite natural. What's unnatural is Margaret's obsession with them and her disregard for her own son and his feelings. It's been 6 years since then, and it took my fiancé a lot of time and therapy to deal with whatever had happened because his life had been terrible for those 5 years that he had been married to his ex. But then, 2 years ago, we met through a couple of co-workers, and we started dating. And earlier this year, we got engaged. I had met his mom before. I did get the feeling that she didn't like me. But ever since we got engaged, she's been much worse than usual. Earlier, at least she would just be cold towards me and try to ignore me. But now she targets me and picks on me all the time. I've tolerated it for a while out of respect for my fiancé, but then, a couple of days ago, I just finally snapped at her. In the past few months following my engagement, she has developed this annoying habit of taunting me with my fiancé's wife's name, and then she pretends to correct herself and says my name. I know it's not a mistake that she's making. I know it's on purpose, and I definitely catch the smug look on her face after she does this. It's pretty petty, and I didn't want to talk about it, but it was getting a little too much for me to take. So, at dinner, when she did this one time too many, I decided to tell her that this was not funny. I told her that I knew that she was doing this on purpose, and I called her out on her BS. I also told her that it's funny that she should keep repeating this woman's name, knowing how much she had traumatized her own son. It just went on to show how little she cared for him, and if it were up to me, I would make sure that my fiancé went no contact with her because she clearly did not deserve a son like him, who had continued to be by her side even after the way she had been treating him for the past many years. In front of everyone at the table, all the guests, I brought up how she was no less of a nightmare than his ex-wife because she had played an equal role in bringing that woman into his life and ruining it for 5 years and turning it into a total nightmare. And instead of being ashamed of it and being sorry about it, she takes pride in it like some sort of psycho. I told her that my fiancé's ex would have been the perfect fit for her, and that neither did she deserve a good son like my fiancé, nor did she deserve a daughter-in-law like me. And then I got up and left, and my fiancé followed me. We went back home, and I thought that he was going to be upset with me, But he told me that he was really happy that I had finally confronted her because he was bound to put up with her. But I was not. So it was good that I had taken a stand for myself. And now it's been a couple of days since then, and Margaret is blowing up my fiancé's phone with messages and phone calls, demanding that I apologize because she really felt humiliated, disrespected, and embarrassed when I made that speech. And she insisted that she had never had any wrong intentions. But the way I made it sound, she felt like I was making her out to be the bad guy in her own son's life on purpose. She's been crying crocodile tears, but I have no sympathy for her. Am I the jerk for snapping at my mother-in-law in front of all her guests at a dinner party? Update 1. Hey, okay, so a lot of people were questioning why exactly my fiancé had bothered to stay in touch for so long with his mom when she clearly did not respect him or his boundaries and had no regard for him. A lot of you people were not nice about it either. You guys called him a doormat. You guys called him a spineless coward and whatnot. And let me just tell you guys, if he was anything like that, I wouldn't have been with him in the first place. But he's not. He has his own reasons. First off, my fiancé's father passed away when he was just 2 years old. After that, it was his mom who had raised him single-handedly. She never married, hardly even dated other people, and so she only has her son now by her side. My fiancé's grandparents passed away a long time back, and his mom doesn't really get along with the rest of her family, so she's pretty much alone. She doesn't have a lot of friends either, well, because she doesn't really have a good attitude towards anything. And my fiancé has told me that several times in the past, he has thought about cutting his mother out of his life, but in the end, he finds it very difficult to actually do it. He can't bring himself to do it because he knows that she has sacrificed a lot for him, be it in her career or her personal life or whatever, so he owes a lot to her, pretty much everything that he has. And I can totally understand why it's difficult for him to cut her off, no matter how hard she makes it for him to be nice to her. Even after this particular incident, he has told me that he will try to sort things out. But if it doesn't work, then I am under no obligation to be nice to her. I don't owe her anything, and I don't have to take any crap from her. If I were in his place, I probably would have been the same way because she's not getting any younger. She's almost 65, and she has a lot of ailments already. She's been asthmatic since she was a child, has been pre-diabetic for the past couple of years. She has problems of the heart, and recently she was diagnosed with arthritis as well. So, naturally, we have to take all of this into consideration because, of course, she has enough money to support herself. She has worked hard enough for that, and she can get a nurse for herself. But it's not the same thing as being visited by her own son every weekend, so he can be there for her. And it's not like she's always unpleasant to him. Sometimes she's exceptionally nice and goes out of her way to do things for her son, but then there are times when she's absolutely unbearable as well. So they have a complicated and kind of toxic relationship, but I can understand why he has not cut her out of his life yet. God knows if I was in his place and my mom behaved like this, I would definitely find it difficult to cut her out as well. Anyway, so that's about my fiancé and his mom, and I hope that this will at least make people refrain from making horrible comments about him. You guys don't know everything about everyone, and this is not about him and my mother-in-law at all. This is about me and Margaret. And regarding that, I can see that the popular opinion was that I have no reason to feel sorry about anything, and if anything, she's the one who should be apologizing to me for behaving like this for so many months. But I know that she's not going to apologize, and I'm not foolish enough to expect her to either. The only thing I'm going to do at this point is to steer clear of her altogether. As it is, my fiancé has told me that I don't owe her anything, and I don't have to keep myself in check around her. So far, I had only been doing it for him because I know that he's not a very confrontational person, and especially when it comes to his mom, he hates getting into fights with her. It's not like he hasn't tried it before, believe me, he has, but she's not willing to change. She's always been like this, and I'm sure that being a single mother for so many years hasn't helped her case. She's not going to change. She's going to continue being cranky, self-centered, and always believe that she's right about everything. So, she can continue to do so. I don't have to entertain it, and if she feels embarrassed because of what happened at the party, then she will do well to remember this in the future and not pick fights with me unnecessarily. I think what happened was bound to happen at some point. I think it's good that there is somebody who will keep her in check, at the very least. Now, I don't know what's going to happen because in the past couple of days, after trying to talk to my fiancé and get me to apologize, she sort of gave up when my fiancé said that he was not going to do anything of the sort. So, if we hadn't heard from her for about 3 days now, tomorrow's Saturday, and my fiancé has said that he's going to pay her a visit and discuss all this with her and, if possible, get her to apologize to me. If that works out, which I don't think it will, then it's all good, but I'm still going to keep my distance from her. Update 2. Okay, so my fiancé visited his mom in the morning and he came back just a couple of hours ago and told me everything that happened. Initially, she had even refused to let him in and said that after what had happened, she wanted nothing to do with him until he had broken up with me or I had apologized to her. She was pretty adamant on it, and after a couple of seconds he was about to leave. But then she finally opened the door and started whining about how she couldn't believe that he was actually about to leave her. She started crying, saying that she had raised him all on her own, that she had sacrificed so much for him, and now he couldn't even get me to apologize to her for insulting her in front of all her guests. She started accusing him of prioritizing me over her and said that she couldn't believe I was controlling him like this, which was crazy because she's the one who's always tried to control him. Anyway, my fiancé defended me, and she started getting even more upset when that happened. All she wanted was for him to just blindly say that she was right and get me to apologize to her. She was not ready to listen to any reason or logic. So they argued for a bit and she was standing outside her house. She had not even bothered to invite him inside. After a while, he got really annoyed, and he said that if that's the way she was going to act, then they were not going to get anywhere, and he was about to leave. But then she invited him in and started acting normally all of a sudden, saying that she really wanted to sort things out with him because she knew that, at the end of the day, he was all that she had, and no matter how much she acted cross with him or got mad at him, she still loved him, and she did not want him to walk away upset from her. This is the pattern they usually follow, and once again, my fiancé went in. And once they were seated, his mom started telling him that she had always wanted what was best for him. And sure, she had been very disappointed when he ended up getting divorced from his ex because she was very confident that match would have worked out, but that did not mean that she did not care for him. She said that in moments of anger, she might have said certain things that might have hurt him, but she wanted him to know that she did not mean any of it. By this, she was obviously referring to the fact that, in the past, she had implied that it was his fault that his ex cheated on him and went off with his richer friend. And like always, my fiancé told her that it didn't matter if she had said it in a moment of anger or not. The fact of the matter was that she kept saying it every day that she was angry with him, and it was not okay. It was not acceptable for her to say things like this, especially because it made him feel really bad, and in spite of how she made him feel, he would still keep coming back to her because he wanted to be a good son to her. Just like in the past, she had always been a good mother to him. But all he wanted from her was to not make it so difficult for everyone around her to be there for her. That's all he asked of her. And so he wanted her to apologize to me because the way she had behaved with me the past couple of months, that was also not acceptable. Not unlike him, I was not obliged to look after her. I was not obliged to come to her every weekend and try to fix things with her, no matter how upset I was with her. I was not him. She had not raised me, and she had not had anything for me that would make me indebted to her forever. So she needed to understand that if she did not want any problems in the future, then she should apologize to me. But of course, he hit a snag there because his mom was not ready to apologize to me at all. She said that she would apologize to him gladly, but after the way that I had behaved with her and embarrassed and disrespected her in front of so many people, there was no way she was going to come and say sorry to me. She insisted that I was the one who had acted way worse, and maybe she had been a little cold and mean to me, but that did not excuse my behavior, and she was not going to speak to me unless I apologized to her. He tried to reason with her to the best of his abilities, but she was just not willing to bend.